Yes, sir.
Holding gets around in front.
And Philadelphia has it.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to DSM pregame live Sixers Bucks edition, streaming to you guys live on DSM Media's YouTube channel exclusively tonight. I am one half of your host here, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. To my right, my faithful co-host Scotty. Check him out on Twitter at Scotty Drowned. My man, the Sixers get their season opener, their home opener under the way, while the Milwaukee Bucks open up their season. Is what I was trying to get out tonight. No Chris Middleton, no Joe Ingles, who they acquired this offseason, and no Pat Connaughton tonight for a fully healthy Sixers squad. Before we get into tonight's matchup, keys to victory, predictions, etc., I want to go back to the other night, Tuesday night's loss in Boston against the Celtics. What happened? What went wrong? Obviously, James Harden was a glaring positive, but the bench scoring seemed to be an issue. Defense was a big issue. And then, of course, turnovers, most specifically by Joel Embiid, came back to bite the Sixers in this one.
Absolutely. It was a bad showing nonetheless, especially versus what we were expecting, what we predicted. But I will say it's not that bad, right? It's not as bad as it may have looked. This is the defending Eastern Conference champions we're talking about in the Boston Celtics, and they came out and they looked like they were picking up right where they left off. Quite honestly, it looks like they didn't miss a beat. And I had mentioned that to you on the pregame show on Tuesday. I mentioned that to you and Phil, and I believe Jason was there as well. Again,
yeah.
There was a chance this Celtics team has a chip on their shoulder, and I'll be honest with you, didn't know much about their interim head coach going into that game.
Mm-hmm.
Looks a lot like Ime Udoka, and as far as the demeanor, the way he handles the team, the way he leads the team, and it looks like they have not missed a beat with coaching either. He's keeping a lot of the same schemes. They mentioned that in the pregame broadcast that they're using the same defensive schemes. They're keeping everything pretty much in line with what Udoka was doing there last year. So while it wasn't what I wanted, it wasn't what I expected, the defensive performance, obviously we'll talk about, a lot of this as we get through the pregame show here, but we said it on that show, there's a lot of moving pieces that are coming into Philly and that we need to figure out, especially on that bench, which was another glaring hole last night, or not last night, but Tuesday night, excuse me. So I don't know. How are you feeling about this? I'm trying not to overreact. There's 82 games, and these are the best teams in the East that we're talking about playing here tonight on Tuesday night.
You went on the road and played the defending Eastern Conference champions in the Boston Celtics, who are back together, who had their core back together, adding Malcolm Brogdon. We thought that the coaching situation, that the Ime off the floor situation would play a bigger factor than I guess what it's really going to be. While the Sixers have about 17 new pieces to get implemented into this offense and on the defensive side of things, you have to stay patient. It's an 82-game season for a reason. This game does not mean that the Sixers can't beat the Celtics. It does not mean they are a top of the Eastern Conference, but there were glaring, not just negatives, but just, I would say, more things that infuriated me, that frustrated me, that I've seen in the past from this team that Phil was speaking on in a little bit more of a tone this morning on trending, which is like the bench scoring. Now, obviously, that is going to get cleaned up. D'Anthony Melton's going to play a lot better. Daniel House will hit his threes. Montrezl Harrell will have more of an impact on the offensive side of the ball. George Niang will hit more threes than one, right? So I'm not worried about it, but scored like 11 bench points. You got outscored almost 30-11 on the bench. The second thing is defense. The defense was disastrous. You can't allow Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to combine for 70 points on efficient shooting, right?
Yeah.
The final thing, though, is the turnovers, and it starts with who's supposed to be the MVP, the leader, the tenured guy here in Joel Embiid, right? And you heard me talking about it. I saw your comments earlier. I want to have this discussion with you right now because you are my NBA guy to talk to here at DSM. And it's like, listen, I know that Joel Embiid has all the talent in the world. I know he is a 7'2" phenom that is able to put the ball on the floor and do things with the basketball in his hands that he's not supposed to be able to do. I love him being able to put the ball on the floor one-on-one, breaking a guy down off the dribble in isolation. Scotty, he led the team with 6 turnovers last night. And if you go back, I would bet you a lot of money that all 6 turnovers came from him putting the ball on the floor in traffic, trying to dribble in the lane with 3 or 2 Boston defenders collapsing on him. The first started in the first quarter when, they were getting beat 11-2 or whatever the score was early. They get a steal. He goes the other way and just dribbles it off. Where was he going? He was going full speed.
3 guys in front of him.
Like, this might, like, you are the leader. You are the MVP. You are the veteran. I can deal with if he's stuck in the corner and picks his dribble up by accident and he gets stripped and it's go, all right, it happened. Or a pass out of a double team. It happened. Yeah. You are 7'2". I don't need you trying to dribble through double and triple teams. Leave that to the guards, dude. So that was the one thing, if you can tell, that really frustrated me with Joel Embiid and the Sixers.
Yeah, and I think, you can look at this from a positive standpoint and a negative standpoint. The positive standpoint is that you only lost that game to the Boston Celtics, the defending Eastern Conference champions, by 9 points on the road. And Joel Embiid had a terrible game where he was minus 13 as a whole in that game. The other side of it, these are the problems that we've dealt with Joel Embiid.
Specifically against Boston.
Against Boston, Miami, Toronto,
and Scotty,
the teams that scheme well, right?
And that has nothing to do with new acquisitions and new pieces. It has nothing to do with coaching. That is him. 6 3-point attempts, Joel. Why? I get it if you're heating up early, if you hit your first 2 and you want to let it fly. 1 for 6, bro.
I think he's so used to – I think it's like a bad habit he's going to have to get out of where – it's almost like playing with Ben Simmons for years, and you just have to like get yourself into a rhythm. You can't wait for the offense to come to you. You know what I mean? And it almost feels like that. It's like Joel Embiid gets a rebound. Yeah, you had to do that last year, Joel, because we did not have Ben Simmons. We did not have James Harden, and Tyrese Maxey was not blossoming the way that he has right now. You don't have to do certain things anymore. We don't need 7'2" Joel Embiid to bring the ball up. Now, if you're in a groove and you're hot and you're like moving around, well, that wasn't the case here. There was no rhythm.
Yeah,
he was in no rhythm to be doing that. It was rushed.
Is the word you said earlier?
Yeah, and I think that's 100%. What it comes down to. And I know they were talking about it in the broadcast the entire time, which I'm interested to learn more about it. But just his placement in the offense and kind of being elbow out, right? They're trying to get him to operate at that free throw.
So Gib brings that up here.
Yeah. So 15 feet out. That's where I get what they're saying. Those are his spots, and he doesn't have to work as hard to get his shot per se. But at the same time, you're going to see these instances where he's floating outside, and you're like, why is our 7-footer shooting 6 threes when he's not hitting?
If Gin's still in the chat there, I would say this, like, and how much of that, Gin and Scotty, comes down to the Boston effect and how they play Joel. And maybe it's not as easy, or they're limiting him being able to get position in the post and on the box.
Yeah.
Is that a real thing? Like we've seen how the Heat have played him in the past. We see how the Bucks play him defensively sometimes. The Celtics have been that one team, Al Horford, and I'm not contributing like Joel, but dude, the numbers were there. I mean, the dude put up over 25, shot 50% from the field. It was just the flow of the game, Scotty.
Yeah. And I honestly think that part of him playing up near the elbow is so he can run those pick and rolls, man, with James Harden. I think that's got to be the idea, is getting Joel Embiid used to moving around in that area of the court, setting screens and rolling off those screens or popping off those screens. I think that's ultimately what they're looking at here. They also mentioned the technique of not putting him on the free throw on the line to get rebounds at the free throw when the other team's shooting, keeping him down. So they're trying to get Joel Embiid easier looks than last year. Takes wear and tear off his body, but it's one of those things, like, how long do you have to, like, get through this learning curve of Joel Embiid playing in a completely different area of the court that he usually did?
Right.
So,
And I forgot about this too, because I had the Phillies game on as well. I completely forgot that he had Horford and Noah Vonleh pick up like 2 each in the first quarter. And then it's like they kind of just went away from that attacking style. Him and Marcus Smart obviously had their I guess daily scuffle when the teams get together, right? Fake tough, not going to get into the conversation with Marcus Smart. Obviously, last positive before we move on, James Harden. And exactly as I'm bringing it up, Gents says it right here. The bench won't be worse, but James Harden showed that flash. And I said this on the morning show, Scotty. It wasn't just the 3-pointers. It wasn't the crazy 1.2 on the shot clock over a double team, splashes it, right? There was a little bit of an extra burst there. And what I mean by that is in the paint, getting to the rim. Last year, he struggled with finishing through contact, and he wasn't quick enough off the dribble to get by guys. There was about
even when he would get the switch.
Yeah, there was about 2 or 3 possessions on Tuesday night where he put his head down, got into the lane, and was quick enough to blow by his primary defender and just finish easily at the rim. The mid-range, the floaters were falling. That's James Harden.
And his handle is back, man. I mean, when you're in better shape, everything just moves. He's in better shape, and everything is flowing a lot better right now. His handles are even better. I know we talked about the shimmy, or you guys
Always
did earlier in the day. But the fact that he's able to make a guy like Marcus Smart fall, able to make a guy like Jason.
By the way,
it's not.
By the way,
he didn't make the shots,
like
right?
Said. Well, hold on. Listen. You would like to make the shot. I'd like to just hit the rim. Like if you're going to put someone down and then hit them with the shimmy, I'd hope to at least hit the rim. So James Harden played as good as we could have asked. That one specific play is going to be a meme for a little bit of time because you can't shake someone, hit them with the shimmy, and then hit the side of the backboard especially when you're James Harden. Like it's not like Andre Drummond dropped somebody and then tried to show off and airballed a 3. Like James Harden just did that. So, but no, man, he was the glaring positive. And the only other thing I'll say is I need to see Tyrese Maxey. Gint talked about him earlier, getting hot in the third quarter. There's a stretch in the first half too where he went off for about 5 or 6 straight points. Like he's not implemented freely, I feel like, in the offense. And Doc spoke on it, how they're trying to. It's going to come naturally throughout the season. That's the one thing I'm going to look for is like not having to force him into these runs of 6, 7 straight points, and then he goes silent for 8 minutes in a row. You know what I mean? So Tyrese Maxey getting more implemented freely within the system offensively is definitely something I'm looking for.
They need to just keep playing with the lineup, seeing what works together. You know, maybe try Maxey out there with Melton, where Maxey.
By the way, 2 of the 4 should be on the floor at all times. Outside of maybe like 30 seconds, I saw Doc have Harden and 4 bench players for a couple minute stretches in a row at the end of the second and third or first and third quarter. I didn't like it.
I was going to say, how did you like the rotations overall? Because I mean, as far as who entered the game, I
didn't mind that. Yeah. I didn't mind him going a little shorter on the bench.
I think Matisse could have got more minutes in that game, but I will say
I brought this up,
about
right?
that.
Like I understand it feels like he's getting his way worked out of the rotation and maybe off of the team possibly with not signing the extension. But in a game like last night, I know we always talk about how against teams like Miami and Boston, he's like almost unplayable because he's such a liability offensively. But when Tatum and Brown are getting going, doing what they're doing to you early on, why not throw him out there just to see if he can limit one of them with, you know, so yeah, I don't know. I'm not too mad at Doc about the game 1 loss. It really wasn't on him to me, but again, to Gint's point, it all kind of in a way comes back to him. But let's move on to tonight's matchup.
I mean, I wanted to say about the rotation though, just as far as like the line in the sand, kind of shows you where Doc's trust lies. And he kind of trusts these
Yeah.
newer guys a little bit more than some of the older guys.
Well, as he
Rightfully
should.
so. Rightfully so.
Yeah, and Abe, and I said this too, like on the kickoff show, kind of like it's not going to look pretty. I think they're gonna win games through the first 10. Obviously, they're not going to start out like 3-7 or 4-6, but
Right.
it's not going to look smooth, as Abe said. So they'll figure it out. You just have to preach patience, as their veteran addition PJ Tucker was after the loss, Scotty. So we'll see how they go. But let's get into tonight's matchup versus the Bucks. As I said in the beginning, no Joe Ingles, no Pat Connaughton, no Chris Middleton. Milwaukee's winning percentage, Milwaukee's numbers go down and are hit drastically when one of their big three misses time. They are not the same team with one of Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, or Giannis, especially Giannis off the floor. Obviously, as the Sixers are fully healthy, both teams looking to get their first win of the season. Scotty, what matchups are you looking for tonight? I have a stat for you from our man. I know you just had him on for an interview. Austin Krell.
He's coming on tomorrow.
Coming on tomorrow. Okay, look. Well, maybe he will bring this up, and we'll see how it plays up if you want to bring this up to him after tonight's game. He says, worth noting that when guarded by PJ Tucker last season, Giannis put up 8 points on 3 of 12 shooting and 7 turnovers over a 3-game span. By the math, it was approximately 13 to 14 minutes worth of matchup data.
Interesting.
So we're sitting here wondering, obviously, Joel's not going to be the guy. Giannis isn't the center. Joel's not quick enough to stay with Giannis on the defensive end of the floor. Maybe if he gets in the post here and there, you'll see that switch. But for the most part, we're wondering who's going to guard Giannis. Is PJ Tucker up for the task?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I don't think we'll honestly get the answer tonight because we know PJ Tucker, while he's not on the injury report, he is coming off that knee injury. I'm sure he's getting back into shape. A lot of these guys are, right? So I don't know if we'll get the answer tonight, but nonetheless, it is another body, and it is a quality body in PJ Tucker. You're talking about one of the best in the NBA as far as what you could throw at Giannis, what you could throw at KD, Jason Tatum, all of these forwards in the Eastern Conference that you're going to run into. So the way I'll answer that, there's nobody that can technically strap Giannis or guard Giannis to where he's going to have a negative game. No. But as far as having the best or one of the best to go up against him night in and night out, I wouldn't rather suit up. I wouldn't rather have anyone suit up. Like I'm suiting up. Yeah. I wouldn't rather have anybody else on the Sixers to suit up and go at it with Giannis on the defensive end. So I'm with you there. Matchup I'm looking at tonight, and obviously we know Harden had his amazing night against Boston, the 35 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, a couple threes, obviously. Drew Holiday, do you throw? You obviously throw Drew Holiday on James Harden,
right?
What does that allow Tyrese Maxey to do? That's
100%,
my question,
man.
James Harden can 100%. Be. I don't think James Harden's gonna, play like literally decoy. He's still gonna do him tonight. I think he'll get up over 20 points. I think we saw last game, Harden's gonna pretty much do what he wants this season. Mm-hmm. It's just about being healthy. Tyrese Maxey is the matchup that I'm looking at tonight.
It does feel like it, right?
About that, right? Off ball, Tobias Harris.
Who's Grayson Allen? Like, is that the guy? Like,
right. What are the Bucks working with there as far
and seriously,
even have started?
Listen, man, if this is how the matchups go and Drew is on vice versa, like it doesn't really matter because if Drew's not on Harden and they decide to throw him at Maxey more possessions than not, then it opens up Harden. But you're right. We're going to assume that it's James Harden. This is where we start to look at Doc Rivers. You want to talk about getting Tyrese Maxey implemented in the offense and involved early on, right? Well, if he's matched up with freaking Grayson Allen from the jump, you go right at that matchup. Yeah. You get Tyrese Maxey the ball in isolation. You let him go to work, use his quickness, use his separation ability at the three-point line, and see if you can get him cooking early on. Because that's the biggest thing to me, man. So many times, Scotty, we look to start a game and kind of feed the big fella. And rightfully so when we're talking about the back-to-back MVP runner-up with all the talent in the world, right? But, wouldn't the Sixers be a more dangerous offense if one of the others, we'll call them, whether it's Harden or Maxey or Tobias, is the one that sets the tone and then Joel starts to get involved? Yeah. Whereas, if you start dominating with Joel, I'm not saying it doesn't open other things up. It clearly does when you have to double team and throw different looks at him in the lane and all. But to me, if Tyrese Maxey gets going first, What does that allow Embiid and Harden to then do after that?
And I just want to say something about Tyrese Maxey and getting him going and keeping him involved, because that's exactly what I have written down here as well, is just getting him involved early, but like along with that, keeping him involved throughout the game. It's what you and Gant have mentioned throughout the show so far. Same thing with Tobias, keeping these guys involved in the game plan. But something with Maxey that just boggles my mind completely is, I sat here, I've watched him hoop all summer, and I watched the one-on-one moves that he can do. He can score off the dribble. He's quick as hell. He has ball handling skills. He can shoot the mid-range of three, floaters. Why does he never get like a one-on-one opportunity at the top of the key to make his own play? Like, I don't understand that. He doesn't, it's like he doesn't get room to grow. It's now Maxey's the spot up shooter. You get your shot whenever, Embiid, Harden, whenever you play off them. If Embiid gets double teamed, then you just get an open shot. Why can't he get a play where he gets the ball, he gets to have a little bit of rhythm?
Right. Is that not a set? Like, why is that not?
Yeah, there no sets? Right? Like, I don't understand that. Like, he's your quickest guard by far. One-on-one.
It should not have to be James Harden setting up Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey is able to open things up for himself. And again, it's what I'm talking about, feeding off of each other and the game plan changing. If Maxey's able to use his quickness and his speed and get into the lane early and draw fouls or whatever the case may be, think about how the defense now has to collapse, Scotty, and think what that can do when you surround Maxey and Harden with Niang and House and whatever they want to do with the three-point shooters. If the defense has to collapse, think about how it's going to open everything up. Why did we laud Ben Simmons when Ben went? Now, I'm not talking about the same style or anything like that, but when Ben can get into the paint and use his size and quickness, obviously it's a lot in transition, but I'm in the half-court set, and it opens things up for three-point snipers on the outside. Maxey has the ability to get in the painted area one-on-one. So if he starts doing that with success early in a game, does it open up everything around the perimeter? You would have to assume so.
He did it the entire first part of the season last year, where he would get in the lane, he was dishing out, he was averaging more assists. Now, I obviously know James Harden changes the way you use Maxey, but in those moments when Harden goes off the floor, give the keys to Maxey, right? If Harden and Embiid are off the floor, give the keys to Maxey. Even if Embiid is on the floor, you can still give the keys of the offense to Maxey to run the offense. I don't understand totally making him an off-ball player. Like, they just kind of completely take that out of his game. Unless he gets a rebound or it's a quick out where he gets to push the fast break, the ball is not in his hands to create one-on-one opportunities. And it's odd to me when you're talking about one of the quickest and honestly one of the most efficient shooters on the team. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. And it's part of expanding his game. This is one of those things that kind of bothers me. Don't boggle a guy that can do a lot more into one little space. You don't need to do that to him. Tobias Harris is different. You don't want Tobias dribbling all over the place and doing everything. You want him to fit into that role. Tyrese Maxey's not that guy. You need to let him expand. And I think part of that is kind of what we've talked about so far, just mixing him in with the second unit, getting him those looks early.
100%, man. And I think if there's a key, a matchup, a mismatch, whatever you want to talk about, Tyrese Maxey is in agreement, the guy that we are looking at tonight. And we're also looking at the head coach and Doc Rivers to set the table for him early on, depending on the matchup. But you would have to assume that's how it's going to play out. Because if it doesn't, guess what matchup I'm exploiting? Whoever gets switched on to James Harden, right? So it'll be very interesting to see what Doc decides to do tonight, Scotty. Any other matchups? Obviously, I know you had the Brook Lopez's of the world who come in and they in themselves, offensively, at least for Milwaukee,
annoying.
He pulls Joel away from the rim because he sits in the corner, sits at the top of the key, and Joel can't be that rim protector. Any other matchups you're kind of looking tonight? At? I think so.
I don't know. It's like I almost feel like I'm sleeping on the Bucks, man. Like, without Middleton, Connaughton, but in reality, I mean, the matchups just aren't that great for them, in my opinion, when you take those guys out of the equation. Specifically, Chris Middleton, obviously, but Connaughton's another guy, another cog in their system that they plug in, plays D, shoots the three ball. He would, quite honestly, better than Grayson Allen in this situation. I think you could throw a Connaughton on Maxey or a Connaughton on. I don't know if you want to put him on hard, but Drew Holiday. I don't know. That's the matchup I'm looking at. And then just kind of seeing how it plays out, I guess, with the rest of this Bucks team, some of the guys we're going to use.
I guess another point to look at, keying on Doc Rivers, is obviously we know James Harden and Drew Holiday are going to be on the floor together to start the game and to finish the game. But how does Doc work out staggering their minutes and taking advantage of Drew Holiday-less basketball on the floor? Do you try to get James Harden extra minutes with him off the floor? Because who's coming off Milwaukee's bench in that backcourt and stopping James Harden?
Yeah, that's the chess match tonight, and that's actually a great point, because it could be one of those situations where you see Harden walking up to the table and Drew Holiday's walking up to the table. At least that's how I would play it out if I was Budenholzer over in Milwaukee. But you gotta, that's a chess match within the chess match, right? Is ultimately getting your guys in the right positions. Yeah, the game within the game. I think that's a good point. That's another way Doc can exercise some good coaching techniques tonight, right? There are some ways to kind of grade Doc and be able to track what he's doing. And I get it. It's going to be easy to blame Doc on most nights, right? Especially when the rotation looks funny or if the wrong guys put in at the wrong time. But a lot of this does come down to the players at the end of the day, and we need these guys to step it up a bit. The defense has to be better, right? It looked like layup lines out there against Boston. I know they came out scorching. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown was all over the place and making everything, but you got to impose your will if you're going to be a top 10, top 5 defense in the NBA. And they need to start tonight by trying to do that, which leads to my other point. Force somebody other than Giannis to beat you. Do not let him come out and have 40 points, spreading the ball around for three-pointers. Make somebody else beat you. They have Drew Holiday. He's a solid scorer. The rest of these guys are spot-up three-point shooters. It's as simple as that. Right. So focus on Giannis. Not shut him down, obviously. He's going to do his thing.
Limit him.
Do not let him beat you. Do not have him.
Do not get out in transition.
Game, right? MVP performance.
100%, Abe. I'd love to see Doc take a Sirianni approach and attack favorable matchups.
For some reason,
he's never adjusted in game. It's his way or the highway in games, and that's what I'm talking about with Tyrese Maxey. Whatever the matchup is, or if Harden's on the floor without Holiday, or if Harden can get a switch, find ways to pinpoint those mismatches and target them, man. So, 100% agree.
I feel like he operates by that philosophy.
It's not his way, man.
Imposing your will. Yeah. Like, I think that's his mindset, but
what happens? What happens when the other team has a little bit more will than you do that night, Doc?
Exactly.
You got to coach within the game, and right. So, we'll see if he can find ways to adjust tonight and moving forward. Scotty, before we get into our best bet segment of the show, it's time for predictions and players of the game. I went with James Harden and a win last game. You went with Joel Embiid and a win last game. Obviously, both guys in the number category showed up. Sixers come away with a loss. Do the Sixers start 1-1? Do they start 0-2? And who is your player of the game?
Whew. So I got the Sixers. I got the Sixers winning tonight. I was actually trying to get my score just to make sure I have it the same. I have the Sixers winning tonight. I believe it's 115-107 was my original prediction. So I do have them getting up into the 100s. I still think the defense is going to show a little bit of lax there, and they still will need to improve even after this showing and getting the W tonight. But nonetheless, it's a step in the right direction, right? Getting the W, holding them to under 110 points. Then we can work on holding teams under 100, right? Just one step at a time. As far as player of the game, I originally came in and I was going to kind of flip-flop you today and pick Harden. I'm thinking about the Drew Holiday matchup.
Yeah.
And it's kind of making me waver here. It's kind of making me go in a different direction, but there's so many options. I'm going to go with Harden. I'm going to go with my original. I'm going to go with my original. I'm going to go with James Harden. And I think it's going to be even more impressive. to do it
Right.
against Drew Holiday.
Because
I
no
think it's gonna be more
offense,
impressive.
Drew Holiday is one of the game's best. I get it. He's got the size and he's on your hip. I get it. But if James Harden really is back and James Harden
get him in
can do
foul
this on a
trouble.
consistent level, no one can stop it. Like the same thing, obviously different ways because of the size and athleticism with Giannis. But like we said, no one can stop Giannis. No one can stop a healthy James Harden. They can limit him, but they can't stop him. You're going Harden. I'll go with his backcourt, buddy. Going with Tyrese Maxey. Exploit the mismatch. It's on Doc. It's on Maxey. It's on Harden. Get him the ball early. Yeah. I want to see him be the kid. If that's the matchup, him and Grayson Allen, let him take Grayson Allen off of the dribble. Let him use his speed. Let him get in the paint. Let him take him off the dribble and step back at three, which he worked on all offseason. Tyrese Maxey can explode tonight if they can exploit that mismatch. But I love the James Harden pick. And we didn't even talk about the big fella because he always gets up for these kinds of games versus Giannis and the Bucks. They're 0-1. He does not want to start 0-2. I said this on trending. I'm also, by the way, going with the Sixers win. I do not see them starting 0-2. I think patience is incredibly important. I think the bench steps up tonight in a big way too. I think you see a different DeAnthony Melton. I think you see George Niang knock down 2 or 3 threes tonight. I think you see Daniel House knock down a 3 or 2 tonight and get implemented a little bit more.
They are home, right?
Yeah.
Let
listen to me.
Blood, right?
You guys better show up and you better show heart and energy and toughness, because if you don't, I'm not talking about losing the game, but I'm talking about getting ran off your floor, getting beat to loose balls, all that stuff. You will hear the boo birds come out the first home game of the year, and these new acquisitions will get a rude awakening of what the city is like when you're not producing, right? But I had them winning tonight. Scotty, before we wrap up, and we have a 40-piece nugget coming from Joe. I love it, man. And I mean, he's got to bounce back, right? But any plays you have in tonight's game? I have one very simple one. It is 2 Tyrese Maxey 3-pointers. It is 2 James Harden 3-pointers, and it is 1 Tobias Harris 3-pointer. That is at plus 138, man. We're just looking for a win. This isn't. I ain't giving you fun, crazy plus 2,000 leg parlay here. I'm giving you one simple one to try to win some money.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I did follow your lead with that one. I got a couple other plays tonight. Man, that Dallas Mavericks game killed me because I thought I was going to have a lot more to play with.
Thanks, Mikal Bridges. Thank you.
Yeah, man, Mikal Bridges.
Philly fan, my ass.
Oh, my God, man. That one blew me because I had a pretty good day yesterday, but that one really just kind of threw me off a little bit, less than what I expected I would have. I have 1 plus 192. This is my safe one. I did put yours into. I think that one's pretty safe as well. Plus 192. Sixers money line. That's probably the scariest part of it.
Yeah.
Embiid 24.5 plus, so 25 points. And Harden 15 plus. That's plus 192 tonight. I have another one plus 350. Sixers Bucks total over 224.5. Harden 19.5 plus, Maxey 15.5 plus, Maxey 2 threes, Harden 2 threes. And then I just went on the side and just did a little $5 parlay for my man Tobias, just in case he decides to have a night.
All right.
I have the 76ers, it's plus 240, 76ers plus 6.5, Tobias 15.5 plus, Tobias 2 threes, and Tobias 4 plus rebounds. So a modest Tobias game. Hey, that's my brother. Man. He signed a jersey for me. I got to support him a little bit, hoping for the best from him. But
absolutely.
I may throw something down on the Kawhi return game tonight. I haven't thought about that one yet. But
might have to see how the Sixers game goes first. But I like it, man. I'm going simple. Just a win is a win right now. But that is going to wrap up DSM pregame live. Yes, and it was brought to you by Gents Barber Lounge. Check out one of 2 great locations in Fishtown and Old City to book your appointment today. Gents owns the craft and it shows. Rated the #1 barbershop on Yelp in the Philadelphia area, having multiple award-winning barbers and being able to handle any style of cut, adult or kid. Take a look at some of Gents' work. check them out at gentsbarberlounge.com to book your appointment today. Again, that is www.gentsbarberlounge.com. Check out our friends at Luxenden Jewelers at shopluxenden.com. Use promo code DSM at checkout for 25% off. Again, that is promo code DSM, all capital letters, at checkout for 25% off and free shipping. For myself, for Scotty, subscribe to DSM Media on YouTube. Like this video. We greatly appreciate it. Have a great night and go Sixers.
Go Sixers.
And Philadelphia has it.